So hi James, thanks for stopping by to chat with us at Access All Areas.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I know you're here to buy a property with your partner, but I'll come back to that in a bit. But first let's talk about your amazing company, Argonon. What is Argonon?
Okay, well I run a production group called Argonon, which is headquartered in London. We've got offices in Liverpool, Glasgow, New York and Los Angeles. And we're the biggest independent production group in the UK. And we make original production for all the major networks, the streamers, Netflix and Amazon, and we make some movies as well. So we're in the content business.
Yeah, and who are
the big clients?
No, well, who are your partners involved? It's just you, or how many?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the main shareholder. I set up the business. Originally I set up a company called Leopard Films in 2001. I come from a background of journalism and then production. So I started out in working for Condé Nast magazines in Paris, actually, but working for the Americans. So I worked for Vogue and
I'm coming to that.
Condé Nast
So hold that.
I'll hold that thought.
I'm really interested in that also. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's you and a couple of partners, but you set the company up.
I set the company up in 2001, and I'm the main shareholder now, but I have got some incredible business partners.
Fantastic. And how long has the company been in existence?
Well, Leopard was my first business I ran for 10 years, and then I rolled that into the group Argonon in 2011. So we're just about nearly 20 years old now, which is incredible.
And you have offices all over the world, London, Glasgow, where else?
Well, our headquarters is in London, and then we've got a really busy office in Liverpool, which is just this incredibly exciting and creative city. We do a lot of production in Glasgow, again, amazing creativity up there. We've got a big office in New York, which is the hub really of our US business right now. But in fact, we've just opened in Los Angeles also, because obviously LA and Hollywood is really important. We've been working in Hollywood for my entire career, but we've never actually had a base in LA, but we've just opened this year.
Yeah, fantastic. And you also have different production companies within Argonon that take care of different subject matters, reality shows, documentaries. Tell us a little bit about those companies.
Well, Argonon is an umbrella group, and underneath that there are 7 production companies. So there's Leopard Pictures, which is a drama company. They make scripted drama for Netflix and the BBC. There's Bandicoot, which makes entertainment shows like The Masked Singer and big game shows. There's Windfall, which makes incredible digital and technology and history documentaries, very high-end, $1 million plus per hour programming. There is Leopard Films, which is a documentary company based in the UK. There is Bright Spark, which makes some brilliant access films, and also they do some very edgy investigative documentary. So they did the Prince Andrew investigation, for example, with that.
We'll touch on that a little bit as well.
In a bit. So it's a real mix.
Yeah. So going back, before you moving into production, you started out as a journalist, writing for Vogue, Vanity Fair, Tatler, Evening Standard. Tell us a little bit about that also.
Well, when I came out of college, I studied languages, so I've always been really keen on travelling.
Because you speak...
I speak French, German, Italian, and I'm learning Spanish.
And
I did do Spanish GCSE, but it's pretty weak. And in fact, I was saying to my assistant today, listen, when we get back to the UK, which will be in the next week or two, I've got to start taking some Spanish lessons, because I definitely need brushing up. And I've also been learning Mandarin, because Mandarin is really important now.
Really?
China is such an important marketplace.
Yeah.
And some very exciting content coming out of China. And just if you have a few words of Mandarin, it just makes all the difference. You go to a Chinese meeting and there's a real sense that we care and we're making an effort. And that is kind of how I do business. I want to connect with people, and it's got to be win-win, and it's got to feel like it's a give and take. And the Chinese people love it when I struggle through my rather basic Mandarin, but it's worth the effort.
Beautiful, impressive as well. And you were working alongside Anna Wintour.
Yeah, I mean,
the Vogue guru.
Yes, sure.
What was that experience like?
Well, when I first went to Paris, I got a job working for Condé Nast, which is obviously a huge magazine publisher, and I was working on Traveller for Harold Evans, who was the British boss based in New York of that, and then I worked for Tina Brown, who was the editor of Vanity Fair, and then I worked for Anna Wintour, who's the editor of Vogue. So I worked for the 3 kind of most incredible beasts of journalism based in Manhattan.
Any similarities to like the movie The Devil Wears Prada?
Very much so. Very much so. Yeah, I mean, those people are, top of their game in one of the toughest cities in the world. And they are so groomed. Yeah. They really know their stuff. Yeah. Really professional. I mean, they're very brilliant and, of course, completely committed to their work. Yeah. And absolutely cutthroat. Yeah, you do not put a word or finger out of place.
Fantastic. And where were you based during that period?
I was based in Paris, actually, but I was going backwards and forwards to New York a lot.
Yeah, and how long were you a journalist for?
I was doing that for about 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what sparked the shift from journalism to production?
Well, I came back from Paris
How did you
and I got a job
making that transition.
After I'd been working in Paris for a few years, I decided that really I needed to be in the head office because I was working long distance for these New York publications. So I looked at New York and I looked in London as well. And then actually I got a job as commissioning editor on Tatler. It just sounded exciting and, I just thought, well, what the hell? So I came back and I worked for them for a while. And then I got poached by the Daily Mail for my sins. They were incredible because they paid a lot of money. And they said they would train me to write 1,000 words a day. And, to have that skill is quite a remarkable thing to learn. Yeah. And it was very, very difficult. But, we were hammering out stories day in, day out, 1,000 words every day, boom, 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 boom. So I enjoyed working for them, but then their politics are pretty rough.
Okay.
I've struggled with that. Can I tell you one story about that?
Yes, please, absolutely, go ahead.
Well, basically, I did some quite tough stories, but a funny one that I think you'll enjoy is basically they asked me to do a double-page spread on Miss World. And so they asked me to basically get in touch with every Miss World that could be found from the last 25 years. So I literally spent, 2 or 3 days hammering the phone to Bermuda, to Venezuela, to Thailand, to South Korea, Japan, God knows everywhere, all over the world. And I made contact with these amazing women, some of whom by this point were, in their 50s and 60s, because it was, some after the fact. I think we went back to the 70s or something. And they'd all had a mixed bag of stories, of course. They looked incredibly beautiful at the time, but, there were quite a few divorces and a few, problems with children and, the usual stuff that goes with just generally in life. Anyway, because I was a bit young and a bit naive, I gave all these women my home phone number because I thought they'd be calling me in the middle of the night. And the morning of this double-page spread was coming out, the phone started ringing at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I picked up the phone and it was Miss Bermuda. I suppose it must have been 9 o'clock at night or something for her. And she said, "What have you done?" And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." She said, "What have you done?" I opened the newspaper. So I was like, "Okay, well, I'll call you back." Put the phone down, raced down to buy the paper, opened it up. And there was this huge double-page spread with my name in the middle, which obviously as a young journalist was a big thing.
Yeah.
But across the top it said, Miss World, Crown of Thorns. And literally every single woman they had retold in the edit, long after I'd gone home, they'd retold every story. So they told the most terrible, libelous things about these poor women. Things like, they'd had heroin problems, or they'd had so many divorces that no one would touch them, and now they were kind of chronically lonely, or whatever. I mean, just awful, libelous stuff. And I felt really guilty, because actually some of these women I quite liked, and they'd given me their trust, and they'd told me their story. And on top of that, they had my own number, so they knew where to find me. Anyway, so I was mortified. I went back into the editor and I said, "How did you do this?" Because quite a lot of this stuff is not true. And of course, over the coming days, the lawyers from all over the world will be phoning up and saying, we're going to sue the Daily Mail because you told the most horrendous, libelous stories about our clients. And some months later, actually, by which time I'd left, I went back and I looked in the Daily Mail library, and there was this big, everyone has a file, everyone who writes for the newspaper. And I opened up my file, and there was this double-page spread covered in red notes and lawyers' notes saying, do not quote, this, went to court, or we ended up having to pay a vast amount of money. And I thought, that's gone down on my name, because my name's in the middle of that page. So it looks like I told these terrible lies about these women. And that for me was a massive turning point. I thought, I've got two choices in life. I'm either going to stay in this industry and go down that route, which is a pretty nasty way to go, frankly, or I'm going to have to put my foot down. And I'm really going to have to kind of find my backbone, if you like, and be brave enough to say to people I was working for, you know what, I don't agree with this, and I'm not going to have my name put on it, because you can't abuse people, you can't cheat people.
How do you clear something like that up?
You don't.
You just don't.
As a young journo, well, what do? You learn. I mean, I took that as a massive learning process. I thought, I don't want to work for these people, and I've got to have a moral compass in the work that I do. And actually, you know what? It's often those difficult experiences that set you in good stead, because they teach you a tough lesson, and they make you think, you know what? Actually, I'm going to do things differently.
Wow, interesting.
Hence, I went into television.
Well, sometimes the bad situation leads to a great...
it's a big learning curve.
Beautiful. Yeah. Well, coming back to the present time, so the success of The Masked Singer in the UK, did you anticipate that?
To be absolutely honest, we didn't. But I've got a brilliant business partner who I backed actually 3 years ago, called Derek McLean, who'd worked for the BBC and he'd won an Emmy working in America for Bravo. It's a big channel in the States. And he had heard about this quirky South Korean format 3 years ago, long before anyone else had heard of it. And he said to me, James, I know we've just started off, but we could get the format rights for just a few £1,000s. What do you think? It's like, well, it is a lot of money, even though it's the grand scheme of things, a few £1,000s for a format is not necessarily a lot, but when you're a startup, every penny counts.
Yeah.
But we thought, you know what, let's take a punt on it. It could be good. So we took it around to everybody. We took it to ITV, we took it to Channel 4, took it to BBC, took it to Sky, as we do with that's the nature of our work.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of interest, but a lot of fear that this kind of weird show, how would the British audience respond to it?
Yeah.
Shortly after we took the format out, Fox in America took it out in the US for the US rights. At which point they put it on air, and it was the biggest hit in 10 years on US television.
Right,
So then, as soon as the ratings came out on day one, we went back to our clients and said, look, it's a huge hit in America, we've got to do it here. At which point we had a massive bidding war. So everybody wanted it.
Divine timing, I guess.
It was good time. It was good timing.
Because it's been the highest ranking TV show of 2020. Is that correct?
For nearly 10 years, 9.5 years, it's the biggest hit on ITV in prime time. It took everybody by storm. I think it was a lot to do with the timing.
Yeah.
It hit at a time when we're all so worried about so many things. Brexit has been a nightmare for the whole of the United Kingdom, as you know. A lot of trouble with money and just people generally feeling, anxious about stuff.
Yeah.
So to actually know that on a Saturday night you can come to this really entertaining, feel-good show that is all-encompassing. It's also great family viewing. There's not that much stuff on TV where the whole family can sit down and watch together.
And it's reviving a lot of careers. Because they're pulling out some, America, they were doing Gladys Knight, Chaka Khan's and everything, who I adore. Yeah. But it's a good all-rounder, really, isn't it?
For us, Patsy Palmer, who of course is, she's a soap goddess. Yeah. And much loved, but she's DJing in LA and hasn't really been seen much in British media for a while. And she was the first to come out in the first season, and people went wild. Yeah. And it's great to see that. And of course, now on the back of that, she's just to do a lot more things.
Right. And so, what impact does that have on your company once you pass a certain level of success like that?
Well, the second season is much easier to cast than the first.
Right.
Because on the first season, people are very anxious. It is actually a very difficult show for the celebs to perform in, because one, they have to perform, and that is in itself, requires learning a song and giving it your all. But also the costumes are very heavy. Yeah. They can weigh up to 50, 60 kilos. They can be very hot and very heavy. So there's an awful lot of setting and resetting when you're filming this show, because we make all the costumes as light as they possibly can be and as movable as they can be, but some are very elaborate, so movement is quite difficult inside. And if you're trying to give your best performance and on top of it you're doing it in this very bizarre outfit, that's quite challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so as an independent company equaling with the major companies, how do you maintain an independent image when the the only way now really for you guys is up, bigger success, bigger budgets. Have you considered merging with a bigger company, perhaps?
Sure. I mean, we get the call a lot, and I always take the meetings.
Right.
I'm not opposed to joining forces or indeed at some point being bored. But right now, one, we're really enjoying it, so we don't have to do any of those things. And the business, touch wood, is going really well, despite all the things that are going on in the world. Going back to what I said earlier, it's got to be a good fit. I don't want to work with people that I don't care for, and I don't want to work with people that I don't enjoy and respect. And there are a hell of a lot of sharks in the entertainment business, as you well know.
As I well know.
Been there, done that. I just don't want to work with those people. I will if I have to. Right. We do know, of course, we work with a lot of A-list talent. Yeah. And with those people, some of them are there and are brilliant and easy to work with. Yeah. Others of them, they're putting their life on the line every day. They're putting themselves, they're the people on the screen. And of course, you have to respect the fact that they're going from shoot to shoot to shoot, and every day they're turning up and they're exposing themselves. Yeah. So it's up to us to provide them with the water that they want, provide them with a really beautiful Winnebago, make sure that the flowers are the right colour flowers, are the ones they want. And initially you can sort of think, oh my God, this feels really fussy. But actually at the end of the day, these people are under intense pressure. Yeah. And they need to be looked after. Yeah. And of course, they leave our shoot and the next day they're on to something else, equally high pressured. So I've got used to it over the years.
Yeah. So you start filming the second series of The Masked Singer as of next week, Monday, right? Yeah. With a feast of presenters: Jonathan Ross, Rita Ora, Davina McCall.
Yeah. Mo Gilligan as well this time. Right. We brought him in.
Okay.
Joel Dommett is hosting again.
Okay.
Yeah. Ken, we're still waiting to find out if he's able to come because he's got some commitments in the US. Ken Jeong.
So what does a full production day look like from start to finish, especially with the current climate of with what's going on?
Well, it is shot for live. So every night there is a performance in front of a big studio audience, and normally the audience would be, knocking 1,000 people. But with COVID, of course, that's been very difficult in the pre-production to work out what we could do and what we felt comfortable with. Because at the end of the day, protecting everybody, both on and off screen, is our top priority. And we've been absolutely meticulous about laying on as much as we possibly can to make sure people are safe. Yeah. So for quite a long time, and we've done this with ITV, we thought there could perhaps be no audience at all, which was disappointing because a big live, as for live show, requires that interaction. You've got to have that electricity. Yeah. But in fact, the solution that we've come up with is to have less people in the audience and to cast people in the audience in house bubbles. Domestic bubbles, so 4, 6, 8, 10 people who are living together, and then you've got a 2-meter gap, and then you've got another bubble, and then a 10-meter gap and another bubble, and we will shoot it in such a way that becomes invisible. So there'll still be a really great atmosphere, but at the same time people will be protected.
Okay, and when will that be screening?
We don't know exact TX date, but I expect it to be probably January next year, just a treat after Christmas.
And Wurzel Gummidge, equally as successful now, and you're filming that soon also.
Yeah, well, Wurzel Gummidge again shoots on Monday. That's the first original commission coming out of the BBC post-COVID. So it's very important. We've pushed to be the first, and there's good and bad about being the first. Right, yeah. And we did all the groundwork to demonstrate that we could shoot safely. And actually Mackenzie Cook, who wrote, directs, and indeed stars in the show, it's a massive tour de force by him. He's an incredible man. He was adamant that we've got to get back to work. And you know what? Thousands of freelancers in our country, all over the world, have been struggling. We've all been struggling. But freelancers have been particularly badly hit. And our industry depends upon these brilliant people. So we've been working really hard. And Mackenzie also was very adamant. We've got to get back to work. Yeah. We've just got to put all the myriad protocols, as long as you're armed, in place. And just to talk that through, for example, on set, you would normally expect to have about 100 people, and they will, generally share apartments together if it's location. They will eat together. They will share, loos and all those things. Everything is separate. So food is going to be brought in boxes. People have to eat separately, put their stuff back in the box and send it away again. None of the loos have handles on them, so people don't touch handles. Every time we have a prop, so anything that is touched or used by one person, before you reset it, it gets cleaned down and reset again. We're having to spend a lot of extra money on having extra health professionals. There'll be testing before and at the end of every shoot day. The shoot days will be therefore shorter, and it's, you know, as we start to move into slightly shorter days in the UK, that makes it extra especially complex. So there's going to be a lot of challenges to it, but you know what? We've got to get working again.
Yeah, I completely agree. But you also cover more serious matters like the Prince Andrew investigation. Yeah. Like that's a bit of dangerous territory, really. How do you approach covering something like that?
Well, my background is in a mixture of current affairs and documentary and entertainment and drama. And I think it makes a more interesting creative environment when you're doing a mix of genres, because you've got different people working in the same space, and someone who's a music expert knows nothing about astronomy, who knows nothing about, you know, MTV bands. But you know what, you put them all in a room and you get really unexpected things coming out of it. And that is the way the entertainment business is going. It's these hybrids, these kind of clashing of minds and clashing of different interests and flavors, and bringing an expert from one area and putting them into something completely different. It creates something unexpected. And that is so much about my job, you know, to keep coming up with different, unusual twists.
Yeah.
Because nothing's ever original. Everything's always been done before. Yeah. But how can we give it a new twist? And that's often about just putting a new flavour in, putting someone from a very different space into that area, and see what they come up with, because it's going to have a new angle.
Fantastic.
So yes, just on the Prince Andrew thing, I mean, we do a lot of investigative stuff. In fact, one of the things when the whole COVID thing was happening is we had to pivot some of our businesses away from doing what they would do. You know, we couldn't shoot in people's homes. So we thought, well, what can we do? Well, we can do investigations, which we use as a lot of archive. We can shoot difficult interviews long distance. And we were able, with Channel 4, for example, to get special press permits to film the more hard-hitting journalistic pieces. So we've done quite a lot of dispatches. And one of them was, yes, this investigation into Andrew and the whole Epstein story. And of course, it's very shocking what has happened, and not all of it has come out yet. There is more to come. It's highly contentious. I think that there are people who have abused their position, and that has to be exposed, because that cannot be allowed to continue.
Yeah, I agree with that. So yeah, that's interesting. And also then there's the TV favourites like The Cash in the Attic.
Which is coming back. We've had Cash in the Attic recommissioned in the US.
Fantastic. House Hunters, both
that's on every day.
Are highly entertaining and filled with useful information.
Yeah.
We all love a bit of that.
Yeah.
So how do you source what you film and produce, and what do you think makes great viewing? Because judging by all your awards, countless awards.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's not just down to the luck of the draw. It would take you know, somebody who knows their craft really to source such entertaining.
Well, it's our job to keep coming up with new ideas, and without ideas we don't exist. And that is the kind of people who I work with, and who I am, frankly. Yeah. It's what makes life interesting.
Emmys, BAFTAs, Royal Television Society Awards. I mean, it's endless.
We've won roughly 150 international awards. Yeah. So the ideas are sometimes just completely crazy ideas that come out of nowhere, and that is increasingly the way channels want us to think. Rather than thinking to a brief, they want us to think, you know, what is just a great, mad idea that no one would ever dream of producing? Bring us that. And actually, The Masked Singer fits into that. Yeah. And there are others too. There are also, you know, parameters, because of course channels, they all need their long-running bread and butter, if you like, for want of a better term. So you need long-running, very popular shows, whether it's a soap or whether it's a long-running entertainment format like Cash in the Attic or House Hunters International. Or others. You know, all the channels need those because the audience love to have a daily appointment to view, if you like. It makes people feel good. Cash in the Attic's been on air in 167 countries.
Oh, right.
Ever since we first produced it in 2001, all up to the present. I go to the Caribbean and I switch on the TV and I get an episode to catch it. Thank you, God.
How does that
Please
feel?
keep watching.
How does that feel?
Please keep watching.
Caribbean,
Of course. I mean,
how does it feel?
I'm very passionate about that show. It's been company for 20 years for millions of people all over the world.
Fantastic.
It's not particularly going to change the world. There are other shows which are more highbrow that we produce. But I love the range of programming. So for me, that's what makes my life exciting. I can go from a meeting about The Masked Singer to a meeting about Prince Andrew to a meeting about glorious property in the sun.
Yeah, fantastic. So as I mentioned earlier, you're here to buy a home in Mallorca. Sure. Why Mallorca?
It's a good question. I've been thinking for a while about I would love to buy a house by the Mediterranean. I'm a keen Europhile. I'm not a Brexit fan at all. I'm very worried about what's going to happen, but I have accepted the outcome. We just have to live with it now. But I love Europe. I grew up in continental Europe. I lived in Paris. I studied in Munich. I studied some time in Florence. I speak Italian as well. But actually, I've always had a little bit of a blind spot actually about Spain, funnily enough. I mean, I love Barcelona and Madrid. I've got friends there and I have been there, but I hadn't really been to the Balearic Islands. And then a friend of mine 3 years ago had an amazing 40th at the Maricel, Hospice Maricel.
Yeah.
Oh God, we just had the most incredible party, and I've never been.
Space to have a party.
Stunning. It was stunning.
Yeah.
And I completely fell in love with it then. And that was early in the spring. And then I went back to the UK and I spoke to my partner. I said, listen, we've got to go and visit together. So we then came back about a year later, and that time we stayed in the Meliá del Mar in Dietes, which is again a beautiful, completely different. I love that kind of reformed 60s look, but very contemporary. So that was a wonderful stay, and we started the process of looking around, at which point we started to make some contact with agents, including the wonderful Donna Suarez at Calvia Properties.
I know Donna very well.
So then we started the process of just seeing what might be available, what's out there. And we're looking for something which has got sea views. I'm actually personally, I do love that boxy look, and I've never had a sort of big boxy modernist home. I do find that quite exciting. But I also love history, and there's some very interesting sort of 20s and 30s historic property here in Mallorca. I think some of which is a bit undervalued. And some of these buildings have that kind of classic Riviera look with, the balustrades and the umbrella pines. And so we're open-minded, but I really hope we're going to find something, because I think it's an extraordinary island. Not only is it very, very beautiful, it's also got terrific infrastructure, and that's important. It's very easy access. And actually, if I'm brutally honest, because I am a linguist and I'm a keen Europhile, it feels like the best of Europe has all come into one place. And I love the fact that I can speak German with some Germans here. I don't speak Swedish, but they speak brilliant English. I can meet with French people, Italians, lots of Brits, which is nice.
You'll definitely get an advantage living here with those.
There's a mixture of everything, which is wonderful. And of course, lots of Spanish people too, which is great.
So will you be spending more time here once the sale goes through?
Well, the plan is when we find our dream property to spend as much time as possible. I do have to travel a lot, although in the way things are going now, I'm going to be taking a lot less aeroplanes, which is ultimately better for the environment. It's better for jet lag, less costly, and actually my whole business, the entire organisation, we've got 1,500 people working remotely. Everybody's working on Teams, and it is just working very, very smoothly. We're shooting scenes where a whole series. Actually, we shot a 12-part series for Discovery, with the director's sitting in New York, and we're shooting in Melbourne in Australia, in Tel Aviv in Israel, in Helsinki in Finland. And she doesn't need to be on location anymore. We can do these things remotely. Which means, of course, that's good for me potentially. But I've got a conference call after this actually with my team in LA. I've been seeing more of my American team since lockdown, frankly, than I have in 10 years. and there's a real kind of intimacy, which is strange about this remote working, which of course is great because it means that if we've got a home here, and as long as I've got great Wi-Fi, I can hopefully spend more time here.
Or as we say here, Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi.
So, but you're also filming a show here in Mallorca, right? It's, what's the name of that show?
Yeah, we shoot here regularly. It's a show called House Hunters International.
So that's the House Hunters shot here?
Yeah,
okay.
It's, we shoot all over the world. We're shooting on all 5 continents every day of the week. So we've got multiple crews filming all around the world, and we come to Mallorca a lot. And it's a property search show, but they are mini documentaries because they're about people who are looking to transform their lives. And we often come to Mallorca because it's a place where people dream to come and live. So we're here many times a year.
Interesting. Well, I just kind of wanted to know how James got to be where he is now. So a question I wanted to ask is, did you ever envision your life this way, James? The life that you're living now, did you envision this?
I didn't think I could get as far as I've got, and I've still got further to go. So no, I think I'm doing pretty well. But I am somebody who is demanding of life. I'm not prepared to put up with being told that I can be this or I can be that, or I cannot have this or I cannot have that. I think the world is your oyster. And that for me is really important to know. And I say that, I've got nephews and nieces and godchildren, and I say to them, you can be whatever you want. If you really want it, you can be it.
So you kind of meditated on this idea of a life like this, maybe, perhaps?
I think I dreamed of getting out of what I regarded as a slightly narrow background, if you like, and I wanted to be a part of the exciting world that I live in. And I've also got a very strong social conscience, so I'm very active, engaged in lots of different things, and I love that. I mean, I think it's a great blessing to be able to be involved in lots of different things.
So what would you say the secret of your success is?
I think one of the most important things is having a passion and running with it. Never saying to yourself or allowing anyone to say to you, you cannot do this. Just go for it and you can make it happen.
Lovely. Yeah. So just before we wrap things up, let's have a little bit of fun with a quick Q&A. Ready?
Sure.
Okay. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Sweet or sour?
Well, definitely sweet. Sour never.
Favourite alcoholic beverage?
Well, I just discovered here in Mallorca the most incredible rhubarb gin and tonic, so I think that's my new
That's my favourite, funny
cocktail.
enough. Yeah, it's super delicious, that is. Meat or fish?
I cannot beat a great fillet steak.
What emoji do you use the most?
Happy.
What's the last thing you Googled?
Oh gosh, Son Kalyu.
Introvert or extrovert?
Extrovert. But I have my quiet moments. They're really important.
Favourite form of transport? Trains, planes or automobiles?
Can I say scooter? Because I love 2 wheels. I've had a scooter in London over the years, a Vespa, and when I come to Mallorca, I'm going to get myself a Vespa.
Winter, spring, summer or fall?
Has to be summer. I love the sun.
And finally, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
Go for it.
Thanks, James. Thanks.
Thank you very much.